And now we've got this month's interview, which is with Steve Birkin of Hybropsyche. He is a repeat guest, which is always exciting. He's written a new book and he's come on to talk to us about it.
Progenitor as their hand slipped from her. By now the front of the vehicle was visible, still climbing at an angle. The fate of the child and its need to level itself left the captain no choice but to proceed forward. Levelling a further 3 now empty homes, the cogenitor screamed as the poor infant was ensconced fully into the ground, a mere portion of the top of her head visible. All in the crawler looked on with horror. Amory snapped out, "Let me help!" There was a mixed pause. "Court-martial me later, Captain, but just get this bloody cockpit open or I'll smash my way through." At the same instant, Fredrickson nodded at Moore. The rounded glass door raised up. Amory jumped out like a flash. "Please, let me help," she said to the group, who had now begun digging frantically with their hands. By now the child had sunk, invisible beneath the moist soil. Amory was a blur, scooping great armfuls of soil and hurling it over her shoulder until the gritted form of the child stood frozen before her with a scrunched face. Tears came to her eyes. "Oh no," she sobbed. But all in one instant the child opened her eyes and screamed just as the vehicle began to slide towards them both.
Hello, and now it's time to introduce our guest for December, Steve Birkin of Hybropsyche. He is a returning guest, which we always like to see. So it's lovely to have you with us. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Hiya. Lovely to have you coming back to speak to us because you've got a new book. So it's always lovely to have people come to speak to us when they have some new work. But let's start at the beginning for people who may not have heard your first interview, which was some time ago now. So what kind of things do you write?
Okay, well, I've done this will be my fourth book, but basically the first one I did just very briefly was called Steely Amelia. That was a kind of, well, I'd set myself the challenge of writing in a female point of view in the first person. But it was kind of, the inspiration for that was to kind of imagine someone like Emily Bronte living in our surveillance culture, because she does spend a lot of time on her own, etc. She doesn't like the stir of society, I suppose, but that's the kind of autistic threads in that story, although she was never diagnosed, because I think there's a lot of people in life that don't get diagnosed because it takes a heck of a long time to get diagnosed. So in her case, it's a case of she went through life muddling through, if you like, and sort of the community weren't quite prepared for her. They couldn't understand her isolationist, where everybody else is all hanging about and knowing each other's business type of thing. But the gist of the story is she Steely, or is it the way that she's been interpreted? So that's that one. The second one I did was called Neural Rehab. We can either do you want to explain that all?
Yeah, and Neural Rehab is like a series of books, and your new book is in that series. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So I'll just run through what Neural Rehab was then. It's based set after the Third World War. We're in a blasting situation, but I'm not talking Logan's Runs. I didn't want to do glass domes and all that kind of business. I wanted long, never-ending streets covered in glass to give it that more sinister feel, and probably more realistic, but it would be like that anyway. So buildings within buildings. There are elements basically anybody who's not conforming may be subjected to what's called neural rehab, which involves artificial realities directly into the brain. So scenarios are played out. One of these characters was kind of like antisocial, so he ends up going in a project known as the Militia Dream, which is all survival training, combat training, etc. And another character is completely regressive. He goes back into neural rehab in a kind of a situation that rejects technology. So he has a kind of Victorian setting to go through, where he's acting as doctor to a kind of Mrs. Rochester-like character. The problem is when he comes out of neural rehab, she starts to appear in his life. So it's like she's invading, or that character is invading his consciousness, which influences his judgment. The third person is a crash victim. And so the neural rehab for her is to kind of rehabilitate her back into society, but there's more to it than just that. And it's a corrupt situation. The human government is not based on Earth anymore. There are less than 1 billion humans left on the planet. The government are on a planet called Jasapa, and these are an alien race, which we can probably go into a bit later because they feature in both stories. There are pimps in government. It's all corrupt. There are clones to try and perpetuate the species, but clones are being treated as subhuman and kind of modern slavery. So there's this one character, Xanthi Cousteau, who is determined to try and expose all what she knows about the situation. So she does actually recruit a couple of these neural rehab people along with her to fight. Well, not acting like a terrorist, but literally sort of just trying the best to get off of Earth and expose this to the Jasapa higher government, etc. So, in that point of view, there are some nasty, dark characters, etc. But Xanthi, in the end, although one of the key nasty people are destroyed, etc., I'm not going into it too much, Xanthi is taken hostage at the end. So for her, the end is not great, and she's subjected to sort of lots of torment. And the final page just leaves Xanthi having had a cardiac arrest from the stress that she's been put under and just being dragged away. So the book that I'm on now is a sequel to that, but I had written a book in between that, which was a kid's story, a kid's book called 3 Short Stories for Kids aged 11 to whatever.
Ooh, so a change in tone there.
Oh, indeed, yeah. I think my last interview was that book as well. So this sequel, hopefully I can get it out just before Christmas. I've had the typescripts approved and everything. I've done all my proofreading and correcting little bits. There's just the cover art the cover to approve. So then hopefully it might just be out before Christmas. But this is a sequel to Neural Rehab, and this is called Sparks of the Javelin. And it features some of the old characters. It features some new characters. There are different facets to this story. Some of it is, part of it is certainly to go and try and rescue Xanthi Cousteau, because it's 5 years on, and she just seems to disappear. She just never seems to be found. And she is then reported to have been passing information to Earth military on this massive fortress of a complex that's been built by human hand, or by initially started by humans and one of the previous characters. So this is now a complex which is on the Jasapa planet, and a handful of humans with some new characters, some old characters, are going to infiltrate this and also try to rescue Xanthi Cousteau. In the meantime, there's political issues on Earth. All the old hatrages are starting to resurface. So there's one particular chapter I've called the winged adornment, which is basically talking about the kind of left wing, right wing situation, but saying that sometimes if people go far enough left, they actually become extreme right and they don't realise it. It's the kind of thing that happens in the background. So,
because what I remember about your work is that it's a science fiction fantasy background, but you feed in some ideas that are quite current in modern politics.
I think in all my work, I try to cover prejudice, but I don't write stories about prejudice. What I will do is obviously there'll be threads of prejudice because it's real. It's in life that prejudice is always there. We're all prejudiced. We're all capable of prejudice. There's no such thing as anybody who isn't. It's obviously, you try to recognise when you are being prejudiced, of course, and none of us is 100% successful about that at any given time. But what I was reflecting in this is, especially in this version, in this story, is more about featuring LGBT and disability a bit more. Trying to be a bit more positive about it. I've spoke of the Jasapa before. It was hinted on in neuro rehab that the Jasapa had 3 genders, and this one, in this one it features more. Now I'll tell you why I kind of got the influence from that because there was a couple of Star Trek episodes. Star Trek usually tries to paint a positive picture of equality, etc. But there were a couple of Star Trek.
In quite a 90s way, though. So watching it back, you think, well, we've moved on since then.
Yes, yeah, good point. Yeah, definitely. Because there was 2 episodes about what you might describe as intersex beings, and for both those, it were like. There were sad endings for those beings because their rights weren't being acknowledged, as even though they were aliens, but the human rights weren't acknowledged, and it was sad endings in both cases. So what I've done in this case, which there is a passage on there, is referring to one of the battle cruisers, which is there are a series of Earth battle cruisers. And on one of them is a Jasapa captain who is the 3rd gender, so they are known as Vias. That's their name, and I wanted that character to be a good leader, vibrant, strong, compassionate, and beautiful, basically. So I hope I've accomplished that with that character. They are a strong character, I think. They do feature quite a lot.
Captain Veas turned as the first officer straightened from viewing the tactical display. The Sheffield is in pretty bad shape, but 2 Stampede craft and their force carrier are hiding behind the 3rd moon. Veas grinned. Have the League ships detected us yet? Lieutenant Commander Finch turned from Ops. It doesn't appear so. Veas laughed. Perfect. Then turning to the flight officer, they shouted, Wing Commander Chen, I want all fighter craft to come in from that angle and begin immediate attack. Warm up force carriers A and B. They will launch when we're ready to clean up this trash. Chen turned to her console. Yellow and grey squadrons, launch immediately. Yellow 1, grey 1, coordinates are fed to your consoles. Designated pilots report to the carriers and prepare for launch. Colonel Drake, the force's commander, activated the communicator on his own console. Soldiers, report to your carriers. Fighters away, Captain. Chen shouted back. Okay, take us into weapons range. Power up all lasers, Veas issued. The First League ship sparked with multiple explosions as Yellow Star Strafe Squadron surrounded and fired a barrage to every side, each fighter firing 4 simultaneous lasers into their target's hull. Then, before the Second League ship could respond, the Grey Stampede Squadron had surrounded it and fired their twin lasers into its hull, whilst each fighter's rear gunner targeted and hit key areas with their rotating turrets. The 3rd and 4th League ships were the concern of the Duterte. It moved firing into the range, took the return fire with relative ease. Then, once between both targets, the Duterte fired its more powerful fixed port and starboard attack lasers. By now, 4 out of the 5 League ships appeared to hang like flinching, sparking fish. Amidst the tremors, Yellow and Grey Squadron leaders received a call from the Sheffield. "This is Wing Commander Taylor. Our fighters are at your disposal." Yellow leader spoke internally. "Grey leader, unless there are any objections." "I have a plan." Grey leader responded. "Copy, Yellow leader. Go right ahead."
And yeah, there is a person with a disability on there as well, and he's wondering about whether he's going to be welcome in Civvy Street based on his last reception when he was in there, because yeah, like I said, I think the sort of even though, say for example, there's more BAME, there's more disabilities, there's more LGBT out there in the world than what there used to be. It doesn't mean to say that the prejudice has stopped. It doesn't mean to say that the hate crimes have stopped, because currently at the moment, LGBT is the highest recipient of hate crime, then disability, then race. So
and you're an activist yourself, Steve, and does that feed with your writing?
It does in a way. Yeah, I have become that. Yes. It certainly wasn't something I planned to do in my life, because all I wanted to do was to get on with it like everybody else. But recent years have compelled me to become an activist and try to raise awareness about these things. So, I mean, for example, I will be honest, on this station, I had to stop commuting to Sheffield because of the harassment I was getting hidden in plain sight from my own home, my own local station, Doncaster Station, Sheffield Station, the trams, walking from the station, in the workplace, even when I used to socialise. And I will be honest as well, I was also out in the holiday in Turkey, and I was recognised by some of these people as said he's from Sheffield, and I got harassed there as well.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible. And that's quite a recent thing. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. So, just for the sake of my sanity, I had to stop commuting. So I mean, obviously working from home because of COVID, but prior to that, I was working in a local office instead, which has not done my career prospects any good. But luckily, everybody's working remotely now anyway. So
that's terrible. And did that? What was the relationship with your writing? Were you able to get some of that out in your writing?
Not in that sense. I mean, what I've done, I've put together a 2-hour training course that's an interactive from the activist point of view, and so far I've just delivered that internally to my own day job, if you like, and I'm making sure that it's going as far and as wide as possible. So I'm still pushing for that, but I'm just also starting to get to do that work outside as well. I've got a presentation that I'll be delivering at a workshop in January, and so yeah, from that point of view, I'm trying to raise awareness for that. What I plan to do, if I can get my MPs back in, I'm still waiting on a response, is to be able to approach every provider of public service, whether it be catering, whether it be travel, whatever the case may be, and basically open their eyes to what these things are happening, and basically raise awareness. Because a lot of people, the one thing I get when I've been reporting this, whenever I've reported it, is because I'm visually impaired, it's maybe you've misinterpreted it, or I don't really know what we can do about it. If it can't be proven on CCTV, then that's, it can't happen, it doesn't happen. That's their sort of mindset. So it's a lot of things that are hidden in plain sight.
Her thoughts about Powell drew her eyes to the third booth down the room. She marched purposefully over the square-panelled floor. "May I join you, Lieutenant?" Powell turned to her with a smile of relief. "By all means. It's nice to see a familiar face." I assume we're here for recreation while the Giuseppe decide what to do with us next? I suppose. Are we supposed to be waited on? I can't even see a bar. It's over there, he said with a smile, pointing over her shoulder to where he had first spied her entrance. She turned. Oh my God, how did I miss that? I don't know. How may I help you? A Giuseppe server turned both their heads around. Just a fruit juice, Cole said. The server turned to Powell. And for you? He frowned as he considered. A cheeseburger, sliced carrot, a bowl of cherries and a pair of scissors. Cole whispered, Do you think it's appropriate to trick a Giuseppe? Especially when we're strangers on their planet. If I'm right, she'll return with everything we ordered. Right about what? Just wait until the order comes, Cole straightened. The server arrived, and with all they asked for. Both thanked the Giuseppe and waited for her to walk away. You think we're in neural rehab? Cole asked, leaning in closer. I've always wanted to see Winston Churchill walk by, Powell said out loud. Immediately the figure of the English Prime Minister indeed walked past. However, he had only thought of the clothing, and yet the costume was exactly as he had imagined. If it isn't neural rehab, then it's something similar. Either way, we're being kept here. Neural rehab can play out any scenario, but it would not respond to illogical thoughts. No. We're somewhere else. Powell leaned in closer. Maybe we should try to leave to see if we encounter any resistance, as well as to see if we can get back to... What? Lieutenant, can you remember where we were before coming here? Of course I can. She felt a shudder. No, I can't. We're on Giuseppe, I know that. And we were on a special mission. Cole looked past him. I can't remember anything except for that blue light. That's the only familiar thing.
So, since we spoke last time, Steve, I think last time we spoke about self-publishing your book, and we spoke about why you decided to go with self-publishing rather than sticking it on Amazon.
Yeah, all places such as Amazon.
Or Amazon-like entities.
Sure, yeah. I think what happens is there's a danger with those kind of entities that if you publish through those, you can only sell through those. So at least when I've gone through New Generation Publishing, which basically means anybody could do a J.R.R. Hartley and say, I do suppose you have a copy of Sparks of the Javelin by Hybropsyche, which more seasoned lovers might get that joke. A lot of people won't.
Yeah, it's a middle-aged person's joke, but it's well worth it.
yeah. No, but yeah, I can walk. People can walk into any shop and ask for my stuff. That's the point. And they won't have it on the shelves unless I get super duper famous. But they will have the ISBN, and they can look it up on the database and order it. So, like I said, any shop in the world you can buy it from. And therefore any website in the world that sells books, you'll be able to order it from. So that's why I've gone for that.
It's sort of more real and more of an existent entity.
That's right. Well, it is. There's not like having a real book, because that's the way I've done it. The books can be hardback, paperback, or Kindle, and I've chosen, in my case, to have a Kindle version and a hard copy version. Because some people still prefer the older, the older method of curling up with a good book or whatever. So yeah, that definitely appeals to me. And yeah, I suppose in some ways you probably tend to sell more through the Kindle route, but obviously you're probably not going to profit as much as if you sold 10 copies of the same book in paperback or hardback form.
And is it difficult or expensive to self-publish?
It can be expensive, but what I'd say to people is well, first of all, if you don't have any stories, don't even think about self-publishing yet. But start writing with regardless of. Don't start thinking, oh, people aren't going to like this, or people aren't going to write that like that. Just get on with it first of all, and just keep writing away. If you've got a good, honest friend, then they will tell you frankly what they like about it and what they don't like about it. You don't want someone turning around saying, oh, your work's rubbish, or, oh, it's really good. When you've put all that effort in, you want to know a bit more than that, because it just gives you the impression that they're not even ready, or they're incensed because it's somebody they know. So I've got a friend who's very honest in that sort of particular. He will tell me, he'll tell me something's rubbish, but he'll tell me why it's rubbish. Similar thing, if he thinks something's good, he'll tell me why he thinks it's good. And having an honest friend like that is quite rare. So if you have got a friend like that, it's all to the good. And yeah, if you are sort of writing a story, let it flow. If you get sort of halfway through and think, my God, my imagination's really gone away with me, then I'd probably suggest then you start thinking of whether you want to self-publish and start saving up, because it can come to, I'd say it can come to about 600 and odd, between 600 and 700 quid to get self-published, and then you have to pay a renewal fee for every sort of format of the books each year. But it means that they're always out there. So again, one of the reasons I've done it, I'm not super duper famous, but when I fall off my perch, those books are going to be there. You know, I've left that thing behind, and sometimes, usually after you've fallen off your perch, then people start considering it more seriously, which is an unfortunate thing. But yeah.
Oh, it's a really interesting point to make about self-publishing. And same price as perhaps going on a holiday that you might not enjoy, and then once it's over, it's over. Whereas if you self-publish a book, that's something that's, you know, there forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But since we spoke last time, you've actually built up a little bit of a fan base.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, initially, it's not been through my books. It didn't start off that way. It's because I've not sort of kept all my eggs in one basket, because even though he's self-publishing, it can still be a long time to actually get that break, if you like, and I'm still waiting for it. So, but I did other things, because I've got a YouTube channel where I've done various different videos, some quirky things, some geeky things on Star Trek ships and people and things like that. And I've had some. I mean, I thought I was bad as a trekker, but some of these people were really getting their panties in a twist about what I was saying. But suddenly that was the kind of key, that particular video, whether people were saying nice things or bad things, it kind of moved them on to recognise the other videos I've done. I've done a radiophonics thing called Invasion of the Liposilicates, and various comical videos, but then I've done interviews where I do talk about my books, etc. But other things I've done as well is what we were talking about in the first half of doing the activist thing. I've started doing that, trying to raise more awareness of disability discrimination, because it's, like I say, it's still on the increase. It's not going away. So I've been doing that internally. I'm hoping to do it externally from next year with my MP's support. And another thing I've been doing presentations to local charities, etc., on presentations on such as early music, as in like Middle Ages and Renaissance, the instruments and etc. And also, what's the other thing I've been doing? Yeah, and the history of recorded music. So like going back through like the first ever recording and cylinder players and gramophone records, etc. So just been doing other things to sort of just keep me on the map. I think obviously COVID's blocked a lot of that, because you're not been able to do a lot of that physically. So I'm hoping Father Christmas is going to be get me a media sort of laptop where I can do more of these presentations remotely, if and when COVID kicks back in again.
Oh, how interesting. So do you sort of consider yourself a bit of a content provider at the moment, working across different platforms and then directing people to different bits of your writing, different bits of your work?
I've never been called that before.
I think that's what you are, a content provider. It's very modern.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll have that, yeah.
There you go. So when people can watch the videos, then that can direct them towards your written work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing, obviously, we did say Hybropsyche at the beginning. The video channel name is a bit less complex than that. It's just S Hybro. So
right.
Hybro. And then, yeah, there's all sorts of bits and bobs that I've done over years, different things. A couple of things where I was doing I did a kind of a live bit of recording of me playing guitar along and singing along to these bits when I was trying to get gigs in Sheffield back many moons ago. So yeah, that kind of stuff's on there as well.
Oh, so that's really interesting, Steve. You've got all those things out there. So let's just have a little reiteration to direct people to where they can find your stuff if they're interested in it.
Okay, then. Well, the music aspect, because I've done a couple of things. I've done all my albums on there, the CDs that I did many moons ago. They're on the Bandcamp page, so that's www.hybropsyche hybropsyche at bandcamp.com. And yeah, the YouTube video is S Hybro. I might recommend one video that they watch very quickly called "In the Face of Horror." But yeah, there's all sorts of things. I've done reviews of films and things like that. Well, yeah, reviews of 2 different versions of Jane Eyre. I did a review on as well. And yeah, so pretty much, yeah, the stuff. There's quite a lot of stuff on there.
And where can people buy your books? Where
can people buy them?
Yes.
Anywhere.
They just go into the shop
and ask
for the title. So,
yeah. So there's 4 titles so far.
Give us the titles again so that people can decide if they want to be a Christmas present.
So the first book, I was talking about in the video, was Steely Amelia. The point being, is she steely or is it just the way society judges her? The second book was Neural Rehab, Neural Rehab, which is the dark sci-fi one we talked about before, which we've done on previous interviews. I suppose the sequel to that, which is just about to come out, is called Sparks of the Javelin, because that has a bit more space battles in there, and there are battle cruisers such as the Sheffield, the Illustrious, the Klondike, the Alaric, and also one called the Duterte, which is saluting the Philippines president. So that's Sparks of the Jam. And then the sort of kids' fantasy one is called 3 Short Stories for Kids aged 11 to whatever. So, yeah, you can get those from Amazon as long as you remember to put by Hybropsyche. And, eventually that name will stick with people.
Oh, that's brilliant. So there you go. You can go to any good bookshop and ask for those. Wow, it's lovely to see you again, Steve. And I hope when your next book, you've written your next thing, you come and talk to us again.
Well, I've started writing another one, actually. But just I wrote a kind of a dark short story a few years ago, so I'm just starting to write another one. So if I've got 3 dark short stories, I might do a book of those.
Yeah, get those in the trilogy and then come and chat to us about it.
Yep.
That's great. Thanks ever so much. See you next time.
Okay. Good night, people, and take care of your eyebrows.
That was the writer Steve Birkin from Hybropsyche. Thanks, Steve. It's always lovely to hear how our writers are getting along, and do come back next time.